Alex Martin pedaled his bike down Maple Street, the evening sun sinking behind the rows of neat suburban houses. The town was quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, or at least thought they did. Streetlights flickered to life one by one, casting long shadows that danced across the cracked sidewalks. Alex loved this time of day. The streets felt empty, peaceful, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He adjusted his backpack, the strap digging into his shoulder, and kept pedaling. That's when he saw it. A dark alley he had never noticed before, tucked between the laundromat and a closed hardware store. Two men stood there, half hidden in shadows. One held a briefcase tightly in one hand, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The other's face was obscured by a baseball cap, but Alex caught a glimpse of a snake tattoo curling around his wrist. Curiosity tugged at him. He slowed to a stop and ducked behind a row of trash cans, careful not to make a sound. The men exchanged whispered words, tense and urgent, before the man with the briefcase shoved it into the other's arms. The second man nodded, eyes scanning the street, then disappeared into the shadows with the briefcase. Alex's pulse raced. He had just witnessed something illegal, maybe dangerous. His mind spun with questions. What was in the briefcase? Who were these men? And most importantly, why did it feel like he had just painted a target on his back? He knew he shouldn't get involved, but the details stuck in his head. The license plate of the black SUV that had idled nearby, the snake tattoo, the way the men's voices carried a deadly seriousness. Pulling out his notebook, Alex quickly jotted everything down, sketching the tattoo from memory. By the time he reached home, the sky had turned a bruised shade of purple. His mother, Lisa, was already in the kitchen stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce. "Hey, Alex," she called without looking up. "Did you finish your homework?" "Yeah, Mom," Alex said, tossing his backpack onto the couch, but his mind was elsewhere. Something about tonight felt like the start of something dangerous, though he couldn't yet name it. Dinner passed in uneasy silence. Alex tried to tell his mother about the men in the alley, but Lisa waved him off. Probably just some kids messing around. Don't worry about it. She had always been pragmatic, a single mother working double shifts to keep them afloat. Worrying about some strangers in a dark alley wasn't her idea of a productive evening. Later, Alex lay in bed, unable to sleep. His mind replayed the scene over and over. That's when he heard it, a soft sliding sound from the bottom of his bedroom door. He froze. His heart slammed in his chest. Slowly, he reached for the baseball bat he kept under the bed, his fingers trembling. A folded piece of paper had been slid under the door. He picked it up with shaking hands. Written in neat, cold letters were words that made him freeze entirely. Stop asking questions. Some things are better left alone. Alex stared at the paper, a cold sweat forming on his forehead. Fear bubbled up in his stomach, but alongside it was something else, a fierce determination. He had to know what was going on. He couldn't ignore it, not now. The next morning, he walked to school with a weight on his shoulders. Every car that passed felt suspicious. Every shadow seemed alive. His best friend, Sarah, noticed immediately. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, nudging him as they waited for the bus. I saw something last night, something bad," Alex admitted, hesitating. He didn't want to scare her too much, but he needed someone who would understand. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Bad how?" Alex glanced around, lowering his voice. Two men in an alley. They were exchanging something, a briefcase. I don't know what it was, but it felt serious, dangerous. Sarah frowned. And you're sure it wasn't just some weird meeting? People do strange things all the time. I'm sure, Alex said, his voice firm. I'm telling you, Sarah, they were serious, and I think they might know I saw them. Sarah shivered but didn't speak. She could see the fear in his eyes, but also the determination. Okay, she said finally, we'll figure this out. Together. Alex felt a flicker of relief. He wasn't alone in this. After school, instead of going straight home, Alex took his bike back to the alley. He examined the walls, the dumpsters, the ground for any clues. That's when he noticed tire tracks in the dirt nearby and a cigarette butt half buried in the gravel. He stuffed it in his pocket for evidence, careful not to leave fingerprints. As he turned to leave, the sound of a car engine made him freeze. A black SUV cruised slowly past the alley entrance, pausing as if searching. Alex ducked behind the dumpster, holding his breath. The car lingered for a moment, then drove off. His heart raced. They were watching, he was sure of it. When he got home, he found another message waiting, not in his room this time, but taped to the front door. Curiosity kills. Stop now. Fear gripped him like a vice, but Alex's mind was already racing with plans. Who were these men? What were they hiding? And why was he suddenly a target? He knew one thing for certain. Tonight, he would not hide. Tonight, he would start looking for answers. And so, as the sun set and shadows stretched long across the quiet suburban streets, Alex Martin, 16 years old, became a boy caught in a world far larger and far more dangerous than he could ever have imagined. A boy who knew too much and had no choice but to pay the price. The night after the second note, Alex lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. The words, "curiosity kills," burned in his mind, but the fear only sharpened his resolve. He couldn't ignore what he had seen. He had to know what was going on, even if it meant putting himself in danger. The next morning, he went back to school with a plan. Alex knew he needed more than notes and sketches. He needed evidence. He started asking careful questions, pretending to be curious about local news and missing persons, trying not to raise suspicion. Sarah walked beside him, sensing his nervous energy. "I don't like this, Alex," she whispered as they walked through the crowded hallways. "You're in over your head." "I know," he admitted, "but someone has to know. If I don't figure this out, they could hurt someone else, or me." The first break came that afternoon. Alex noticed a familiar black SUV parked near the edge of town. Its tinted windows reflected the sun, but he caught a glimpse of the same snake-tattooed wrist he had seen in the alley. His pulse spiked. Without thinking, he followed the SUV at a distance, ducking behind trees and fences. The SUV stopped outside a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. Two men got out and disappeared inside. Alex took careful photos with his phone, his hands trembling. He could feel eyes on him as he crouched behind a dumpster. He dared not look around, fearing discovery. After taking the photos, he started walking home slowly, trying to blend in with the few pedestrians. But someone noticed. A shadow detached itself from a nearby alley, following him. His pulse pounded in his ears as he quickened his pace, heart hammering with each step. By the time he got home, he was shaking. He shoved the photos into his backpack, knowing he had to hide them carefully. That evening, he connected the images to his computer and started cross-referencing them with missing persons cases in the area. Hours passed as he worked tirelessly. Patterns began to emerge. Small business robberies, unexplained disappearances, untraceable cash transactions. The same men appeared in several reports as witnesses described shadowy figures or suspicious individuals. And worse, one of the missing people had vanished right after seeing someone like Alex had. His stomach churned. They were professional, dangerous, and ruthless, and now he was on their radar. The next morning, Alex went to school with the weight of this knowledge pressing on him. He tried to focus on math class, but every creak of the old building made him flinch. His paranoia was growing. He kept checking over his shoulder, scanning for the black SUV or the men in dark jackets he now expected to see everywhere. After school, Alex confided in Sarah again. "They're professionals, Sarah. They're not just some kids doing stupid stuff. I think they'll hurt me if I don't stop." Sarah looked pale, fear dancing in her eyes. "Alex, maybe we should go to the police." "I tried," Alex said, frustration sharpening his voice. "They won't take me seriously. I'm 16 and I don't have concrete proof. Not yet. But if I can get more, if I can get evidence, they'll have no choice." That evening, Alex returned to the warehouse district. He had tracked the black SUV again, following it at a safe distance. Tonight, however, the men were sloppy. One of them dropped a USB drive near the warehouse entrance. Alex's heart raced as he picked it up, glancing around nervously to make sure no one saw him. Back in his room, he plugged the drive into his computer. His eyes widened as he watched video footage of meetings, exchanges of cash, and conversations that made it clear the men were running something far bigger than petty crimes. The recordings mentioned a witness who knows too much and needed to be dealt with. Alex's blood ran cold. He was the witness. Over the next few days, strange things began happening around his home. His dog disappeared, the front gate was left ajar, and someone had spray-painted a warning symbol on his mailbox. Each sign made his stomach tighten, his fear grow, but his determination was stronger. He could not run, he could not hide forever. One night, Alex decided to test his theory. He set up a small camera outside his room, hoping to catch whoever was watching him. Hours passed, and the footage revealed a shadowy figure moving near his window. Whoever it was, they were patient, cautious, and very aware of him. Panic and determination warred within him. He knew now that he was a target. He had no choice but to continue investigating, but each step carried the weight of deadly consequences. The next morning, Alex's mother noticed his distracted state. "You've been jumpy," she said, concern creasing her forehead. "Something's going on, isn't it?" Alex hesitated, then shook his head. "Just stressed about school, Mom." But as he left for school, he realized he couldn't protect her from what was coming. His life was spiraling into a world she could never imagine. At school, he confided in Sarah one last time before plunging back into his investigation. "I need to know exactly what they're planning. I have to stop them, or at least survive long enough to warn someone." That night, Alex returned to the alley where it all started, determined to gather more clues. The shadow seemed thicker, the night quieter than ever. He crouched behind the dumpster, heart hammering, and waited. Hours passed, with nothing. Just as he was about to give up, the black SUV rolled into view. Two men stepped out, but tonight there was a third, someone he didn't recognize. Alex watched as they discussed in low tones, glancing nervously at the street. He noticed something alarming, a small photo pinned to a corkboard in the warehouse window. It was him, his face, his name. The realization hit him like a hammer. He wasn't just being watched, he was being tracked, cataloged, hunted. Fear surged through him, but it was coupled with a grim determination. He could run, hide, plead for help, but he would not ignore this. Not now, not ever. As he pedaled home in the dead of night, the shadows seemed to follow him. Every turn, every creak of a branch against the sidewalk, every distant car horn made him flinch. But he kept moving, clutching his backpack, clutching the USB drive that could save him or doom him. That night, Alex slipped the drive under his mattress and lay awake staring at the ceiling. He knew the days ahead would be dangerous, unpredictable, and terrifying. The men were out there, organized and relentless, and now Alex Martin, 16 years old, was no longer just a boy who noticed things. He was a boy who knew too much, and the price for that knowledge was closing in faster than he could imagine. Alex Martin woke to the sound of rain tapping against his window. The storm outside mirrored the storm in his mind. Ever since he had discovered the USB drive, the world felt different, darker, sharper, more dangerous. Every shadow seemed alive, every passing car a potential threat. He had hoped that evidence would help him, but it only confirmed his worst fear. The men knew he was watching, and now he was their target. By midday, Alex decided he couldn't sit still. He met Sarah behind the school, beneath the bleachers where no one would see them. She looked pale, anxiety written on her face, but she stood firm. "They're on to you, Alex," she said, "and they won't stop, not for anything." "I know," he admitted, rubbing his temple. "That's why we need a plan. I can't go to the police. They'll laugh me off. I need to gather more evidence, and I need to stay ahead of them. I have to—" His voice caught. "Survive." Sarah nodded. "All right, but we need someone older, someone who can help us if things go wrong." Alex hesitated. He had one person in mind, his older cousin, Mark. He was 28, street smart, and had connections in town. He had always seemed trustworthy. That evening, Alex texted Mark, "Need your help. Serious." Mark agreed to meet at a small diner on the edge of town. As Alex and Sarah walked in, they spotted him in a corner booth, sipping coffee. He smiled warmly. "Alex, long time," Mark said, ruffling his cousin's hair. "What's this about?" Alex handed him the USB drive. "I think I'm in danger. I need your help. These men, they're organized, they're dangerous, and they know I'm on to them." Mark leaned back, studying the drive. "All right, let's see what we're dealing with." Alex felt a flicker of hope. He trusted Mark. He had to. But Mark's trustworthiness was a lie. Later that night, Alex noticed something strange. He had returned home to find the front door slightly ajar. Nothing was missing, but the sensation of being watched returned with full force. He checked his phone. Several messages he hadn't sent were in his outbox. Panic rose. And then the calls started. Anonymous, cold, distorted voices whispering, "We know where you are. Stop digging, or you won't live to tell anyone." Alex's stomach turned. He realized too late that someone had betrayed him. The next day, he confronted Mark over the phone. Mark, did you give them the drive? Did you tell them about me? Silence, then a voice, calm and unnervingly smooth. Alex, you're smart, too smart. That curiosity of yours, it's dangerous. You need to be careful about who you trust. The line went dead. Panic turned to action. Alex and Sarah packed essentials, water, clothes, chargers, and a backup drive containing copies of all the evidence Alex had gathered. They knew they couldn't go home. Every street, every familiar corner, every neighbor's lawn was a potential trap. The black SUV appeared first at the edge of the shopping mall parking lot, then again near the train tracks. The men were everywhere, watching, calculating, waiting. Alex's mind raced as they ducked into alleys, jumped fences, and ran along abandoned rail lines. Every step was measured. Every glance over the shoulder revealed another threat. In one evening, they took refuge in an abandoned warehouse. Rain poured through broken windows, mixing with the muddy floor. Sarah huddled near the corner, shivering. "We can't keep running forever," she said, voice trembling. "We need a plan." Alex paced, hands shaking. "I know. I need to figure out who's in charge. If I can identify the leader, maybe we can stop this, or at least survive long enough to get help." He went through the USB drive frame by frame, memorizing faces, noting voices, and then he saw it. A face he recognized immediately. Someone from his past, someone he had trusted without question. His stomach dropped. The leader of the crime group wasn't a stranger. It was someone he had grown up with, someone he had trusted. A chill ran down his spine as he whispered to Sarah, "It's Mark! He's the leader!" Sarah's eyes widened. That can't be! He's your cousin. He'd never—" "He's gone too far," Alex interrupted. "And now he's hunting me. All this, it's been a setup from the beginning." The next days were a blur of fear and near captures. The men began closing in, their movements precise and calculated. One evening, as they hid in a subway underpass, Alex and Sarah were almost cornered. They ducked behind pillars as black SUVs screeched past, tires kicking up dust and water. The men were relentless, catching up wherever they ran. Alex realized the only chance of survival was outsmarting them, using the very intelligence that had gotten him into this mess. They set small traps, leaving misleading tracks, using decoys, and changing locations at unpredictable intervals. But the closer they got to uncovering the full extent of the crime group's operation, the closer the danger became. One night, as they hid in an abandoned train yard, Alex felt the unmistakable prickle of someone watching. He froze. A figure stepped out of the shadows. His heart stopped. It was Mark, calm, smiling, the face of betrayal. "Hello, Alex," Mark said smoothly, voice low and controlled. "I wondered how long you'd survive." Alex's stomach turned to ice. "Why, Mark? Why are you doing this? You're my family!" Mark shook his head, the shadows of the rain glistening on his face. "Family is irrelevant. Curiosity kills, Alex. You were smart, too smart, and now you know too much. That makes you dangerous." Alex's hands clenched fists. "I'm not afraid of you." Mark's smile widened. "You will be."
The tension exploded into chaos as Mark signaled his men. Alex and Sarah ran, ducking behind crates and jumping over broken rails. Gunshots rang out, echoing through the abandoned yard. Sparks flew as a nearby transformer sparked from stray bullets. Alex led Sarah into a narrow maintenance tunnel, barely squeezing through the dark, damp passage. They could hear Mark's voice, shouting orders, cursing, laughing. Every heartbeat was deafening. Finally, they emerged into an alley on the far side of the yard. Both were soaked in rain and mud, gasping for air, shaking with adrenaline. The city around them seemed impossibly quiet after the storm of the train yard. Alex knew one thing. They had survived this encounter, but the war wasn't over. Mark knew exactly who they were. He knew where they would go next. And now, Alex understood that survival depended not just on intelligence, but on outsmarting someone who had always seemed like family. He clutched the USB drive to his chest, looking at Sarah. "We have to keep going," he said. "We have to finish this. We can't stop. Not now. Not ever." Sarah nodded, determination lighting her eyes despite the fear. "Let's do it. Together."
The night had fallen thick and heavy over the city, a cold wind whipping through the empty streets. Alex Martin's chest burned as he and Sarah sprinted down a back alley, their feet slapping against wet pavement. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified, the screech of distant tires, the echo of a loose trash can lid, even their own ragged breathing. They weren't just running from strangers now. They were running from someone Alex had trusted, someone he had loved, his cousin, Mark. They ducked into an abandoned warehouse near the docks, the place a maze of rusting metal beams and stacked shipping crates. Alex's heart raced as he scanned the area. It was silent, save for the dripping of water from a leaky roof. But silence didn't mean safety. He could feel it, the presence of danger, closer than ever. "Alex," Sarah whispered, voice trembling, "we can't keep hiding. He's going to find us eventually." "I know," Alex replied, gripping the USB drive in his hand like a lifeline. "We have to face him. We need to end this tonight." Sarah's eyes widened. "Face him? Are you insane? He's armed. He's dangerous." Alex shook his head. "I don't have a choice. He's the only one who can stop this, and he's the one who started it. If we run forever, we're dead anyway." The sound of footsteps echoed across the metal floor. Mark's voice carried through the warehouse, calm but menacing. "Alex," he called, almost fondly. "I knew you'd come here. I've been waiting." Alex felt a chill crawl up his spine. He motioned to Sarah to stay low as he edged toward the center of the warehouse, every sense alert. He could see the glint of a pistol in Mark's hand, the way his cousin's eyes glinted in the dim light, cold and merciless. "Why, Mark?" demanded Alex, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why betray me? I trusted you." Mark smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Trust is a luxury, Alex. You saw too much. Your curiosity could have ruined everything, and you had to pay the price." Alex clenched his fists. "I'm not afraid of you." Mark's expression hardened. "You will be." A tense silence filled the air as they sized each other up, predator and prey locked in a deadly game. Then, without warning, Mark fired a shot into the air, sending sparks of metal raining down from a nearby catwalk. Alex and Sarah ducked behind a crate, hearts pounding. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Bullets ricocheted off metal beams, shards of glass flew through the air, and the metallic clang of falling crates echoed echoed like thunder. Alex's mind raced. He had to find a way to survive, and fast. He grabbed a small fire extinguisher from a corner and hurled it across the room. It hit a stack of crates, sending them tumbling toward Mark and his men. Sparks flew, giving Alex and Sarah a moment to dart through a narrow passage toward the dockside exit. The rain was relentless as they burst out of the warehouse, slipping and sliding on the slick wooden boards. The black SUVs were there, engines idling, headlights cutting through the darkness. Mark stood in the middle, gun raised, a twisted smile on his face. "Alex, it ends here," Mark shouted. Alex's mind raced. He needed a distraction, something to level the odds. He spotted a coil of rope nearby and tied it to a crate, sending it crashing into one of the SUV's tires. The car screeched as it skidded sideways, giving Alex and Sarah a few precious seconds. They ran toward a cargo container, climbing inside and collapsing in a corner, soaked to the bone, hearts pounding. They could hear Mark shouting, calling orders, his voice echoing across the docks like a death sentence. Inside the container, Alex checked the USB drive one last time. The evidence was complete, the recordings, the photos, the plans. If they survived, this could bring Mark and his organization down. But survival didn't feel guaranteed. Suddenly, the container door rattled. Mark's hand appeared, trying to pry it open. "Come on, Alex, you can't hide forever." Alex's heart leapt. He knew the final moment had arrived. He glanced at Sarah. "Stay close. Whatever happens, we fight together." Mark managed to force the door open partially, stepping inside. Rainwater poured over the floor as Alex met him face to face. The two cousins locked eyes, the tension between them almost tangible. "Please, Mark," Alex said, voice breaking slightly. "It doesn't have to end this way. You can still stop." Mark laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "It's too late for that. You knew too much. You threatened everything I've built." The fight exploded. Alex grabbed a metal pipe and swung at Mark, who dodged but stumbled slightly. Sarah joined in, throwing anything she could grab, a wrench, a piece of wood, trying to distract him. The struggle spilled out into the rain-soaked dockside. Gunfire erupted. Alex felt a searing pain in his side as a bullet grazed him, throwing him to the ground. He gasped, coughing, his vision blurring, but he kept moving, dragging himself and Sarah behind stacked crates. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Sarah, Alex assumed. Mark's face twisted with rage as he realized help was coming. He shouted orders to his men, but the tide had turned. In a final desperate move, Mark lunged at Alex. They grappled on the slick wood of the dock, teetering dangerously close to the water. Alex's adrenaline surged. Using every ounce of strength, he shoved Mark into a nearby cargo net, entangling him just long enough for the police to arrive. Mark's men were arrested swiftly, their operation collapsing under the weight of evidence Alex had collected. The black SUV tires were deflated, guns seized, and the night finally fell silent except for the distant echo of rain. Alex lay on the dock, bloodied and exhausted, staring up at the stormy sky. Sarah knelt beside him, pressing a towel to his side. You did it," she whispered, voice trembling. "You survived." Alex shook his head weakly. "We survived, but it came at a price." Paramedics arrived, tending to his wounds. Alex's thoughts drifted to the long journey he had endured, from a curious boy witnessing a briefcase exchange to someone hunted by a crime ring led by his own cousin. He had paid in fear, pain, and innocence, but he had survived, carrying with him the knowledge that curiosity, while dangerous, could not be silenced. Weeks later, the town whispered about Alex Martin, the boy who knew too much, the boy who had survived. Some called him brave, others reckless, but he didn't care about the labels. He knew the truth. Knowing too much could be deadly, but turning away from the truth could be far worse. He walked through the same quiet streets he had once cycled down with carefree curiosity. Now, each shadow reminded him of the danger lurking behind knowledge, each familiar corner a memory of fear and survival. He glanced at Sarah, who smiled faintly. "We did it," she said. "Yes," he replied, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of experience. "But the price of knowing, it's something I'll never forget." As the sun rose over the quiet suburban town, Alex Martin walked forward, scarred, wiser, and forever changed by the darkness he had faced. The boy who knew too much had survived, but survival came at a price he would carry for the rest of his life.